And I want them to make wise choices, and I want to be able to shepherd them through that sport in one piece. But I certainly don't begrudge Bo for that opinion. And I've said myself, you know, I feel very conflicted about my boys playing football at a high level. You know, it was a fun game, but the higher I got in the game, the higher the stakes became, and the more I was tempted to play hurt and, you know, maybe take substances that weren't the best for me. And as the pressure ratchets up, so do those decisions.
Our next two questions will come from Ashton Rich.
Let's talk about an economic reality. One study shows that up to 60% of NFL players are either broke, divorced, or in trouble with the law within 3 years after their careers end. With the huge money they make, why does this happen? And what else can be done to change this pattern?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of just excess at a young age. You know, most of us don't have the luxury of several $1 million when we step off a college campus and in our first career job. So I think there's a lack of preparedness for that. I also think one of the beautiful things about football, one of the great things about football is that once you've done it, everything else seems a little bit boring by comparison. And I just think the magnitude of the excitement is so big and the moment is so rich that these guys can't envision a life without football. But 3, 4, 5 years down the road, when your body breaks down or when the game just decides that it's done with you, you know, it behooves these guys obviously to have some of that money left in reserve as they think about the next stage of their lives.
Okay. Let's shift gears to college football. Just last week, we saw a new development in the sexual assault scandal at Baylor University. Some documents suggest that head coach and assistant coaches actively attempted to cover up the actions of players and block the university from acting. What should other colleges and universities be learning from the Baylor scandal, and what do you think are some other long-term answers?
Well, I think it speaks to where you put your emphasis as a university, and it's a fine line that all of us walk as educators. You know, I love the sport, but I'm worried that a lot of schools place too great an emphasis on it. And again, it's a question of economic stakes, right? As the stakes rise, so too does the temptation to cover things up, to make excuses for your program, and to really not care for the people on your campus. And you know, here at Union, and I know at Lane, you know, caring for people is a priority. You know, and not only do we want to coach these guys, but we want to help them make wise decisions in their life, and you know, sort of shepherd them through the 4 or 5 years that we have with them as people as well as athletes.
And our next two questions will come from Ali Renckens.
Many people have been calling for Baylor to receive the death penalty in football for this scandal, and there's only been once that it's been handed down in college football history. So what would be the good and bad things about Baylor receiving this, or any other school receiving this?
Yeah, I think the good thing about SMU getting the death penalty back in the early 80s with all the recruiting scandals and all the money and all the improper benefits that were going to athletes, I think it really served as a wake-up call for the rest of college football. Things were out of control at that time, and those things still happen. You know, I'm not naive enough to think that SMU getting the death penalty really changed the sport that much, but I think it did sort of warn the rest of the landscape that, you know, we can't just be lavish and out of control with how we recruit players. And I think if Baylor were to get the death penalty, it could send the same message in terms of once we have the players in-house, what does that look like? And what kind of standard do we hold them to? What sort of accountability is there for a football program that generates all this revenue at a relatively small school? So I think these are questions that need to be answered.
Yeah. Some observers are saying that the Baylor scandal and others across the country involving sexual assaults are key examples why the emphasis on intercollegiate athletics is out of control. Yet some institutions still don't seem to be getting that message. Who's at fault here and why? The monies, the big money from the television networks, or the fans who just want to win at any cost?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all probably indicted in that at some level. We all love it. You know, we love to watch it. We make compromises whenever we do watch it. You know, it's easy for me to pound the table as an academic or an educator and say that this or that needs to change, but really, I will vote with my dollars and I'll vote with my TV viewing habits, and until those things happen kind of on a large scale, I don't think much will change.
All right, so that ends our second round of questions. In our final segment, it's our Newswheel round, where we'll cover a variety of issues in sports. Stay with us as Jackson 24/7 College News Conference continues.